Hello guys and welcome back. In previous session we saw how we can create a simple Echo bot using Yeoman generator which is provided by Azure Bot Services, and we also tested our bot using emulator. So now we have a basic Echo bot working and we were able to test it. So in this session we are going to see how a bot actually works. What are the different components of bot builder package like adapter, turn context, activities, and activity handler. So without wasting much of our time, let's get straight to it. So in this diagram, I tried to create a comprehensive look at how does a bot actually works, how does a bot receive a message from channel and then process it, and what are the different objects that get created, what are the different steps, and how the messages are processed inside a bot. So we already know that channel can be a simple web chat hosted on a website, or it could be your app, or it could be a Facebook Messenger or a Skype or a Kik app, etc. So what exactly happens when a user logs in and sends a message to your bot? So each transaction between channel and a bot, whether from channel to bot or bot to channel, is called an activity. Now this activity can be a text message or a speech message, or it could be an attachment or just a conversation update like a new member joining in the conversation or a member leaving the conversation. So all these are called activities, and the JSON payload sent by channel to bot contains all the data and information related to these activities. So once a channel sends the JSON payload, it is received by the Rustify web server running on the bot, and the Rustify deserializes the JSON payload and send it to adapter. So in the diagram you can see A.2. This is the message, deserialized JSON message, or you can say an activity object is sent to the adapter. So if you remember in our Echo bot, the first thing we initialize is a bot framework adapter. So here I have opened my Visual Studio Code once again for our Echo bot, and you can see at the top of index.js file that we have imported bot framework adapter provided by bot builder package. Coming back to our workflow diagram, let's take an example of activity A. So I've shown this activity end to end by depicting all the steps as A1, A2, A3 and then till A6. So once the activity is received to the bot as a JSON payload, so this JSON payload received by the bot is then deserialized and turned into an activity object. Now this activity object is fed to a bot framework adapter instance called adapter, and the adapter will then process the activity object and creates a turn context out of it. So the turn context gives bot the information like the sender info from where the message is coming. The bot will create a sender ID and a receiver ID based on this information. So the bot needs to know where the information is coming from and where does it need to respond back. So all this information is held in turn context. So turn context will also include the information like the channel info and other data like attachments if there is any, the text message sent by the user, and if there is a speech or any other type of data which is sent by user, like the turn context will hold that data. So till now we saw how a bot receives incoming activity in JSON format and how does it process the JSON and convert it into a activity, and how does it takes out all the information for that activity and creates a turn context object. Now what next? So we have all the information, we have all the incoming information from the channel, and now we need to process this activity or all the incoming information that we have received. So all this is handled by activity handler. Now the adapter along with the turn context will send the incoming activity for processing. So it will call the process activity method of adapter, and this method will send the activity to the activity handler instance for further processing. So let's take a look at our Visual Studio Code and try to relate all this information with what we have in the code. So we have our index.js file open once again. So you can see at the top of the file we have imported our bot framework adapter. And then we have also imported our EchoBot instance from our bot.js file. Let's scroll down and see how we are using our adapter. So here you can see we have initialized our adapter with Microsoft App ID and app password. So right now we are developing our bot locally, so we don't need to actually put the app ID and password. An empty value in .env file will suffice. Let's go back to index.js file. So here is our adapter object defined. Let's scroll down. So at the bottom of the file you can see we have initialized an object of our EchoBot that we imported earlier. So once the bot receives the incoming message from the channel as a HTTP post method in the JSON format, the message is converted into a activity, and then the activity is sent to process activity method of adapter object, and the adapter will also create a context out of it. Now along with the context, the adapter will then call the main dialogues run method, and in our case the main dialog is the mybot object. So let's see what exactly is mybot. Let's open the bot.js file, and here you can see that mybot is an object of EchoBot, which is an extension of activity handler. Now activity handler is again a class provided by bot builder. Activity handler uses an event emitter and listener pattern. For example, use the onMessage method to register an event listener for message type activity. You can register more than one listener. So here we can see there is another listener registered for on members added type of activity. So if there is a member added to the conversation, this particular listener will emit an event. So once we have built our bot, all the bot logic for handling and responding to messages will go in the on message listeners, and all the logic for handling members being added to the conversation will go in your on members added listener. We'll see that once we start developing our use case. So bot framework provides you with a lot of different type of listeners that you can use inside your activity handler. If you go on the documentation page, you'll see the whole list of listeners. Let's have a look at it. So on the Azure Bot Service documentation page under how bots work, you can see the whole list of listeners which are available. These are like on turn, on message. When there's a conversation update, there is a listener for that. We are already using on members added listener. Similarly, there are other type of listeners available that you can use. Coming back to our activity handler, once the activity is processed by our business logic under one of the listeners, the bot will respond back to user by using send activity method of context object. Now send activity method of context object can send a text message or an adaptive card or a speech, or it can just be an attachment. Now we have been using this term turn a lot. So what exactly is a turn? A turn can be a set of all the events that happens between. We can take an example of real life conversation between two people. So just how two people talk and each person takes turn to make his or her argument. Similarly with the bot, the user will take his or her turn to send a message to bot, and then bot will reply back to that message. So in this example, you can see all the events that happen between A1 to A6 can be called as a turn. So in this session, we talked about internal workings of bot. We talked about all the components that the bot uses to process the incoming messages from users and giving a reply back to user over the same channel. In the coming sessions, we will start building our use case bot, and we will start by updating our EchoBot. We will start by updating our EchoBot's activity handler to make it a dispatcher bot, which will include a business logic to route our request to Louis or Q&A maker. We will also see how we can manage the state of a bot. We will see how we can save the user state and conversation state so that our bot knows the history of each conversation. And we will also see different type of dialogues that we can create our bot with. That's all for this session, and I will see you in next lecture.